meeting of the Somerville Planning Board for November 8th. Will please come to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was published in the newspaper, posted on the bulletin board outside Borough Hall, and given the report by Mr. Harris. Roll call.
Chairman Novato.
Here.
Ms. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Councilman Vroom, absent now. Mr. Dare.
Here.
Mr. Akins, absent at this point. Mr. Krasker.
Here.
Mr. Carestas, absent at this point. Mr. Cleveland.
Here.
Mr. Addix.
Here.
Ms. Werner.
Here.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The main item on our agenda tonight is a presentation by the DSA of their streetscape plan.
Are we ready?
We can see it.
Is that it?
I have a question. The letter we got from the DSA triggered another letter from the attorney from the Board of Adjustment, and it triggered a letter that I need to talk about. And if they're going to be here to answer questions, we should do it now. I don't want to wait for executive session.
Larry, it's improper to discuss it in public session now because it deals with personnel matters.
No, it doesn't. Well, how come this letter went sent out to all of us? It was sent out to the Board of Adjustment. That wasn't under any kind of discussion about being for executive session. It just sent out, this is what it is.
Because you're a board member. That's why it was sent out. You're a board member and you need that information.
But the same, I understand that, but it was not talked about that it should not have been it should be in executive session. We have the people that we want to talk to. I have things I want to say, and I do not want to, and I don't think it's proper that we can practically character assassinate somebody and then we're going to go talk about it in the back. This was made public. Everybody knows
It's not
Well,
public.
it is.
You got it as a board member. If you made it public,
I didn't make it public, but I have my prepared statement that I want to get into the record.
I will not allow that.
Well, I don't understand why we have to go into executive session when they can write a letter, basically character assassinating somebody. And this is all coming from 6 months ago. The same thing happened when people from the council were sending letters out. It sounds very eerily similar to what was said before. It's always vague innuendo, it's vague insinuations, it's vague.
Larry, we're not talking about it tonight.
Well, this
We're
is
going
wrong.
to deal with it in executive session at the next meeting.
But it's wrong to accuse somebody of doing something wrong,
And we will deal with it then.
but not when he's being embarrassed and it's a vendetta. It looks like a vendetta. It looks bad. It does not, it's not right. And if we're gonna accuse people of things and insinuate people of things, then the man should be able to stand up and defend himself.
And he will. We are going to deal with it in executive session, and then we will deal with it in public session.
It just sounds like he's being railroaded, and it sounds wrong. It seems to me that if we can write these letters and say these things, we can talk about it like men and women, like adults, and talk about it, because it's not going to get any better.
Really quick, I just want to clarify. We didn't write any letters. So
I understand.
okay, I just want to make sure for the record that we're not writing any of these letters. So I think that would be a point for a DSA meeting to discuss a letter that they sent.
I disagree that we can let a letter like this come out and then not address it, and we have to talk about it in private. Nobody else is talking about it in private. They're just embarrassing him. And I'm sorry, Mike. I don't mean to embarrass you either. But I want to defend you because I think you're doing the right things. And I think that, well, I'm
You
just,
will have that opportunity. And
but it's
Mike
not
will
gonna be,
have
but
an
it's not gonna be in
opportunity.
public. He can be embarrassed in public, but not defended in public. It's
When
ridiculous.
we as a board decide what we're going to do in public, we will. Until that time, it's a personnel issue, and we're gonna talk about it in executive session.
This is very wrong.
Okay, moving on. We have the DSA streetscape plan.
Okay. Everybody doing all right? Mike Kerwin, Chairman of the Downtown Somerville Alliance. We are a special improvement district created by the Borough of Somerville. I'd like to think of us as a public-private partnership that was established recently when we reformed as a nonprofit organization where we serve as an advocate for downtown Somerville. Our mission was basically to enhance the downtown Somerville experience. And I think before we get into the details of the plan, I just want to share with you a little bit of the thought process that we went through. I think collectively, all of us, can take some credit for getting to this point. You know, for many years, we heard that Somerville was coming back, but there was always the but, right? And then, but it's no Morristown, but it's no New Brunswick. And then a couple of years ago, we stopped hearing the but. Big moment. So the question then became, what do we do now that we have established downtown Somerville as a premier downtown in the state of New Jersey? Do we coast? No, no coasting. The question became, how do you then take downtown Somerville to the next level? And we decided to undergo this planning process with the basis that the plan that we developed would be based on public input. It would be a bottom-up plan, not a top-down plan. That had to be organic to Somerville based on public participation and input. So it became, our plan. So we went, we got.
So we're, want to start off talking a little bit about process.
Right.
And how we got to this point. So Mike, if you want to.
Yeah. So we looked for a consultant that specialized in downtown revitalization with an emphasis on getting support from the public. And we found Artesian, and they've done a great job. We started by doing the research of prior plans that we did, which were excellent. Our own master plan, regional center master plan, county master plan, and did data collection, and then did a public open house downtown. What restaurant was that?
It was at Alfonso's, actually.
Yeah. We even served pizza. And we gave the opportunity for the public to go literally station to station and give input on the principles that we were looking at. And based on that input, we developed a concept plan that we then presented again in a public forum through Zoom. And based on that, we developed this plan, which contains 3 basic strategies based on these findings. Basically, and before I even go to the findings, let's just acknowledge this fact. A downtown Main Street is one of the most complicated pieces of real estate in the world, absent a Ukrainian battlefield or a New York City construction site. If you go downtown on a Main Street that's thriving, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of competing interests. The Department of Transportation, the pedestrians, the cars, the business owners, the customers, on and on and on. And they're all competing for the same real estate. So this is complicated territory. So I think it's another reason why doing this kind of work is necessary. So we've made some initial findings that we're focused on traffic calming and pedestrian safety. So in downtown Somerville, Main Street in particular, the car is not the priority. The downtown experience is the priority. People walking the street is the priority. Again, the idea is to create this tremendous downtown experience. Wayfinding signage needed work, understated. Wide sidewalks, we can all testify to this, are being narrowed by the restaurants and dining and tree pits that are there. The public spaces do not meet demand. Now, I don't know if I would phrase it exactly like that, but I've looked at it as, the idea, what we put in the plan is that when you do the walk of downtown Somerville, that needs to be one of the great experiences in New Jersey, walking downtown Somerville. And the idea is every few minutes you come onto a new public space that is fantastic, interesting, exciting, stuff going on, entertainment, beautiful, inspiring, community gathering. That's the idea. Lack of bicycle infrastructure, which is pretty clear, and the need, some of the investments we made in our furniture and materials are nearing the end of the life cycle. So that's kind of the ideas behind the plan, the process of the plan, and then the initial findings of fact, which led to 3 strategies we'll talk about. We're not going to get into the specific details as to how to implement the strategies. I guarantee if you go into the tactics, you'll find something you don't like. But rather than get into that, let me just say we look forward to working with everybody, with our partners at the borough and with the planning board. That's the specifics of what we're trying to achieve. But what we're really here tonight is talk about the big picture strategies that, how do we take Somerville downtown to the next level?
Thanks, Mike. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the plan, and I don't know if I'm loud enough or I need to speak into the mic. Am I good? Okay, great. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the approach. You know, when working with arterial streets, one of the things that we loved about their approach is that, you know, they really started off by doing an analysis, right, of whether our community prioritized cars first or prioritized place first. And in the middle of that, whether or not we placed mobility first. So how streets are designed, furnished, and maintained really depend largely on their overall intended use, right? We all know that. So is a street a major thoroughfare that connects trucks, buses, and cars between cities? Or is it a main street in a small downtown? Or is it Somerville, which is somewhere in between? Ideally, a successful street really reinforces its intended uses with the appropriate infrastructure. And so each of downtown Somerville's streets falls somewhere on the people first, mobility first, and car first scale. So when we talk about people first, right, this is the direction that we really wanted to move towards. Because people first streets prioritize characteristics like public space, outdoor seating, pedestrian amenities, in order to maximize the comfort and overall experience for people walking or biking. Mobility first streets prioritize the movement of people and cars and public transportation with established infrastructure that really supports each transportation choice. And then finally, car first streets prioritize the movement, right, of cars, goods, buses with infrastructure that allows for infrequent stopping and starting. So our project team with Arterial Streets really started off by doing an assessment on where our streets were on this continuum. So the analysis, as well as the community input that Mike talked about, really served as the basis for the recommendations that were put forth in the plan and put forth for the streets within our project area, which for the sake of this conversation is the designated special improvement district. So the streets with the largest transformation, or areas within the district with the largest recommended transformations, are those with the characteristics that really didn't support, right, the movement towards a place first district. So we talked about several different strategies and key moves as a part of the plan. And so we talked about looking at things like reorganizing street furniture and amenities within the sidewalk on Main Street, extending sidewalks at corners where parking is currently not permitted, creating sidewalk extensions at midblock crossings and offsetting intersections, developing Division Street or Main Street at Division Street as a pedestrian intersection. And then developing al fresco dining regulations that better support our intended use for the district. And then our favorite topic, reconstructing tree pits and developing a 5-year street tree replacement strategy.
So just, I want to say a point about the plan. The graphics and the mapping and the color are tremendous. And it's just not words, it's actually paints a picture. And I think that's a tremendous tool we now have that we can use, not just the DSA, but the planning board as well, and our friends from the Board of Adjustment, to kind of evaluate what we're trying to achieve here.
So the first strategy, right, if you haven't guessed already, is reorganizing the streetscape to maximize that sidewalk space. And this is really important to us because we know that walkable streets support local economic growth. And we don't just see ourselves as an organization that does pretty events, right, and brings a lot of foot traffic downtown. We see ourselves as a destination marketing organization. We see ourselves as a vehicle for economic development and investment in our downtown. And, you know, more importantly, we see ourselves as a resource for recruitment and retention of businesses that are going to continue to elevate. What you're seeing on the screen here is, and what you'll see in the next couple of slides, is a reorganization diagram that talks about, you know, how or our wish list, right, for reorganizing the streets. As Mike so eloquently put it, right, we're talking bigger picture, we're talking vision, and so this is kind of our wish list, right, and how we wish our streets would look and perform.
So this is an example of the graphics we're talking about. That's a tool right here, showing how we take this complicated piece of real estate and how do you use it in a way that's win-win for everybody. Now, it may not be perfect in every detail, but you get the point, right? So it's organizing the street so we get maximum use out of it and benefit.
So thanks, Mike. So when you look at this diagram, you know, one of the things that a lot of people say is, hey, you know, we've really started to do some of this already, right? And some of this plan, right, captures some initiatives that we've already started. So the DSA has a tree program where we replace, you know, trees and sidewalks and tree pits when the trees are clearly becoming a hindrance to the walkability of the district. So this is really an expansion of that. So the first tactic that we talk about is obviously the sidewalk along Main Street. And we're looking to organize the sidewalks into 4 distinct zones. So the structure is going to help organize the sidewalk and create dedicated space for the primary uses that are outlined on the slide. And the dimensions that are shown on the sidewalk zones diagram represent sidewalks between West End Avenue and Bridge Street. So first we look at the corner zone, right? And so corners are often the most busy piece of the sidewalk, especially on Main Street, right? So we're looking at prioritizing the corner extension. We're looking at the clear zone, right, which is that passable zone, and we're looking at prioritizing ADA compliance. The clear zone is located between the amenity zone and the front gate zone, right, which is zone 3. And it's the area within the sidewalk that really remains free of obstructions, right? We all know that our restaurants have a hard time, right, of really making sure that we have this clear zone. So we're hoping that, you know, by prioritizing this area and using it as we craft our street dining guidelines, that we can make sure that we have more compliant sidewalks. In terms of our frontage zone, right, in commercial areas, the frontage zone is used to support the sidewalk cafes, right? And this might be a little counterintuitive because we know that it is our natural instinct to stick to the corners, right, to stick to the edges. But we feel like this is, you know, considering all of the different competing uses of the sidewalk, and that some of it, especially the curb lines, are controlled by DOT, this is possibly the safest area to keep our sidewalk cafes. So the frontage zone is used to support those sidewalk cafes or retail and include signage, outdoor seating, partitions, and all of the different displays that we see around Main Street. Then finally, we have the amenity zone, right? And so this is where we see our street furniture, our branded trash cans, so on and so forth. And so if you look at the bottom of this diagram, which is in the streetscape plan that all of you have, right, you'll see how wide each of those zones is proposed to be, right? So we're looking at a 5-foot amenity zone, a 5 to 7 foot clear zone, and a 10 to 12 foot frontage zone. So we talked about the importance of the corner sidewalk extensions. So sidewalks and curbs, when we looked at this, arterial gave us the following recommendations: to extend the sidewalk 6 feet into the parking lane, place furniture, plantings, or other amenities strategically to funnel pedestrians to the curb ramps. What we find is that when we don't have anything that blocks pedestrians from using those curb ramps, right, they step out all over the sidewalk, right, and it can potentially be a hazard.
So since we came up with this plan, every downtown I visited the last 6 months or so, ranging from Juneau, Alaska to Traverse, Michigan, have these features, because it's very effective in funneling pedestrians into crossing the streets where they need to cross safely as opposed to the middle of the street. So it's not an uncommon concept.
So we're also looking at using plantings as a buffer along the edge of the bump out to protect pedestrians and provide greenery. And then finally, we're looking at keeping the sidewalk immediately in front of the curb ramps clear of furniture, plants, or other obstructions. So the next key move here is in reorganizing the sidewalk is really talking about a mid-block crossing or a mid-block sidewalk extension. So the recommendation was to have mid-block sidewalk extensions at T intersections where parking is currently not permitted, and one great example of that is at the intersection of Division Street and Main Street. So the recommendations are looking at considering installing the tabled intersection crossing to extend the pedestrian feel and visibility of Division Street onto Main Street. Install a totem gateway at the entrance of Division Street to also act as a traffic calming feature, and adding additional accommodations, additional amenities to accommodate a high level of pedestrian activity. So here comes our favorite topic, trees. So one of the things that we really loved about this plan was the emphasis on green infrastructure. And that's something that, we really can't take credit for ourselves, right? The Environmental Commission for many years, was petitioning the DSA to really look at how we approached the green infrastructure, how we approached the trees. We worked with Arterial Streets to provide them the list of prioritized trees for removal from the Environmental Commission, as well as their prioritization of species of trees to go into the district. And they really worked to try and incorporate those elements into the plan.
Yeah, so thank you to the Environmental Commission. We think green infrastructure is a really cool way of describing what we're trying to do. And thank you. We try to incorporate that.
So we know that street trees are an important component to a successful downtown because they filter and cool the air, they provide shade and shelter, and what we know is that the existing tree pits in downtown Somerville are large, they're difficult to maintain, and they cause clutter on the sidewalk. They're also some of them are nearing the end of their lifespan and have begun to cause sidewalk heaving. So a street, tree, and green infrastructure strategy was the recommendation to be developed together with the Environmental Commission to identify practical goals and define steps to ensure that shade trees are planted, maintained, and monitored over time. And so we know that this commitment to healthy trees represents a long-term investment in the beauty, biodiversity, and character of downtown Somerville. So the general recommendations are that tree pits should be 4 by 8 and include a 2-foot band of permeable pavers on either side. This configuration would leave a 4 by 4 square of exposed soil for mulching and planting. The next recommendation was that a modular suspended pavement system be installed beneath the sidewalk that supports the weight of paving and creates a protected space filled with soil for root growth. The next is that we install a granite paver band that can be engraved with branding or historical information. And then finally, again, that we work with the Environmental Commission to determine the final planting species and tree sizes during our implementation phase. So the second strategy that was identified was building upon and expanding the public spaces in downtown Somerville. We know that Division Street has become a cherished public space. And so I want to start off by thanking everybody who had a hand in making that public space possible. You're welcome. So it's really incumbent upon us to really make sure that we're expanding upon those spaces. This year, we did so much work to incorporate green space on the courthouse lawn and to reclaim that space as a public gathering space.
All right, so let's pause there for a moment.
Sure.
County did a great job reinvesting during the boom years, new courthouse, new administration building, new jail, et cetera, et cetera. The public spaces, frankly, were not great. There was a need for the public to have a space, or as I would like to say, a place for Santa Claus to come. We filled that void. Now what's happening is we reactivated not just Division Street, but we reactivated the other great space down the street, which is the courthouse lawn. Now you got this fantastic synergy going on, which we witnessed last Halloween, where they're connecting and reinforcing each other. So that is gold. If anyone who was around downtown on Halloween with the kids, it was amazing. By activating these public spaces. So we got 2, and we want to build on that.
So with that strategy, right, we have those key moves that we talked about. So the key moves that were identified to support this particular strategy include installing modular furniture and amenities to support year-round programming on Division Street, looking at converting Grove Street into a flexible street. Now, that doesn't mean closing it like a pedestrian plaza, right, but having the opportunity to close it if we wanted to, right? So whether that be with bollards, looking at designing Main Street also as a flex street in between Bridge and Grove, because we know that has become the space for East Main Street events. Looking at adding a public plaza at Borough Hall that better attends to the needs of folks that are on the far west end of the district. Redesigning the Giardina walkway to activate the space with new lighting, furniture, and amenities. And installing lighting and signage in alleys and along sidewalks connecting to those municipal parking lots.
Let me handle this one.
Yeah.
This another fantastic graphic. I want you to visualize taking the Main Street walk, starting with the Greenway connection. We have a great opportunity. I got to credit the master plan, pulling that recommendation to connect with the Raritan River Greenway. What an opportunity for the east end of Main Street, which frankly needs some help. That's an experience. Courthouse lawn, we just mentioned, as something that's now being activated as a great public space. Division Street goes without saying, that's a tremendous home run. But we want to continue it. Gardenia walkway, I know there's been some recent work there to enhance it. But the big opportunity is further to the west, where you get to an historic intersection, one of the most historic intersections in Somerset County, when you think about it. Somerset and West End, Borough Hall, gateway to downtown Somerville, nice lawn right in front, monuments right in front of that. So we can argue as to whether or not it makes sense to take the driveway in front of Borough Hall into a street or not, but the big picture is that's a great opportunity site for another space, community space that enhances the downtown experience. We call it, what do you call it, breadcrumbs?
Yes.
Breadcrumbs along the road.
Told by breadcrumbs.
So every few minutes you walk down Main Street, you're going to see another great community space. That's the idea.
So, at the last public meeting that was in this space that I attended, we were talking about what to do with the old council chambers. And what we heard so much about was Performing Arts Center, right? But what we also heard a lot of was recreation and opportunities for senior citizens. And what I love about what Mike was just talking about in terms of what we're calling the town green closer to Borough Hall is that it's close enough to the senior center where we could activate that space and provide programming, right, if it was enhanced. So, as Mike mentioned, the public space network diagram really illustrates existing public spaces, right? And so as illustrated, visitors to downtown Somerville walk no more than 4 minutes on average before discovering a new and exciting public space. And so what we'll talk about in the next couple of slides is how we would enhance each of these moving forward. And the first one is my favorite, which is the Giardina walkway. We know right now that that walkway doesn't have very great lighting. We know that, at nighttime, it's a little scary to walk down. We tried to enhance it with beautiful flowers and art activation, but we know it just kind of needs an overhaul. So it's the largest alley, and it's an important connection for visitors between Lot 4 and Main Street. And so it should reflect the character of Somerville and provide an informative welcome to the downtown. So the recommendation for this space is to install an informational kiosk near the parking lot that includes a map of downtown Somerville, a directory of stores, transit information, locate fixed furniture throughout, identify select locations for movable furniture, install bike racks near the parking lot, install overhead entry signage at the Main Street entrance, thin out some of that vegetation, but maintain screening that's adjacent to the parking lot, and work with Arts on Division to incorporate public art in this space. So additionally, we want to make sure that we're providing sufficient lighting, providing seating opportunities where space allows, providing potted plants and greenery, looking at installing murals on blank walls where possible, and then looking again at that wayfinding signage at each end of the alleys.
And those who've been around remember that was the very first project that the original District Management Corporation did, remember? A long time ago.
So Division Street is a cherished space. And so while we know that this space has been a great addition to downtown, it's time to really take the next round of enhancements to maximize its potential. So today, the space is largely open and has little to no fixed seating elements or landscape, and that's fine during the warmer months, but we know that after the cafe tables and chairs go away, as it is right now, it's a little bit of a barren space. So the recommendations are to kind of break up the space into these 4 zones, right? And so we're starting with that entry point where we're looking at including some modular art, looking at modular seating, an art display, informational kiosks and directories, which I'm happy to announce that the Somerset County Business Partnership is investing in a series of kiosks to place throughout Somerset County, and the first one is going to go on Division Street in downtown Somerville, and that should be coming before the holiday season, so we're really excited about that. This next area that we look at is called the gathering space. And here we're looking at placing potted planters, large planters, modular seating, and looking at making sure that those plants are providing shade. That's really important to us because right now there is no greenery on Division Street. So when we talk about these rooms, right, these areas that we're creating, these gathering spaces are flanking the centerpiece, and they're comfortable spaces for people to pass through, stop, relax, enjoy an outdoor meal, and more. So then we move into the centerpiece. And so this room is located in the center of the space and should be used to draw people in. So we're looking at elements like sculptural seating, sculpture, and lighting to frame out this area of Division Street. And then finally, we know that we love our summer concerts on Division Street. We love our Starlit Cinema series. And so when we look at anchoring this end piece of Division Street, we're looking to keep it largely open to accommodate events and performances, but we're looking to integrate a flexible stage that can be used as seating as well as a performance space. Since it's the gateway, right, we're looking at incorporating additional gateway signage, and since it's closest to the train station, looking at providing some type of informational signage that we can populate with transit schedules and things like that. Do you have a Kenny?
I should point out, what we're doing tonight isn't happening anywhere else, certainly in Somerset County. This kind of visioning process, this kind of planning work is uniquely us, at least in this part of the world. So this work we're doing here together gives us a huge competitive advantage. We have a district management corporation that's fully, funded. We have staff. We have the ability to get stuff done. So really what we're talking about tonight, when you get down to it, is how do we exploit that in a way that really is a win-win for everybody.
So the Courthouse Green is a beloved space. When I first started working here, the comment was that the county cared more about the trees and the grass than they cared about people using the space. And so we challenged that, and we're looking forward to continuing to challenge that idea. So when we really started this process, we provided Arterial with a lot of the material for the things that were already taking place in the district. And one of those things were the plans from NJDOT to reconfigure Grove Street and Main Street, and the work that and the recommendations that they had for that area. So we did incorporate a lot of those recommendations into the existing plan, knowing that at some point we were going to have to go before NJDOT, right, to make some of this stuff happen.
So there's been stuff going on in front of that courthouse for decades, right? Every memorial, every Veterans Day, there's a lot of events. Let's plan to enhance those events in a way that really complements downtown. And that's, again, going back to Division Street, same thing. We're going to have concerts there. Let's have great concerts there. But put it in a performance stage, right? Like basic things like that. That's what we're trying to take it to the next level. The county has been great. And no matter what you think of the art installations, the fact is it was a significant grant that they gave to the DSA to enhance the arts in downtown Somerville. Great, thank you, we appreciate that. Their willingness to help us, to give us access to the lawn, which is subject to the judges the judiciary has to approve it. They've been fantastic, no problem. So again, we have another opportunity to really do some great stuff.
So the idea here is really to create kind of a courthouse square that could be used not just for events, but also, other activities that would help support daytime foot traffic to downtown Somerville. So the recommendations for the improvements to Main Street include, as I mentioned before, treating the portion of Main Street between Bridge and Grove as a flexible street that can be closed during events, utilizing bump-out corners to reduce crossing distances and increase pedestrian visibility, tightening the radius at the northwest corner of Main Street and Grove Street, installing street trees on both sides of the street to provide shade, utilizing tinted concrete within the roadway in order to calm traffic and create space suitable and inviting for events and programming, converting the angled parking on the south side of the street to parallel parking, installing a center median east of Grove Street to calm traffic, provide pedestrian refuge, and create a visual gateway to downtown. And again, if I haven't mentioned it, create reverse angled parking, which is one of the recommendations from DOT for that portion of the street.
Let me handle this.
Yes, sir.
So this was the big surprise of the report. I mean, a lot of stuff we talked about already, you kind of not surprised to see that. But one of the reasons why you bring in a professional consultant specialized in downtown is they can see things with a new, fresh set of eyes differently than maybe us who've lived here for a long time would recognize. If you look at just the concept, so the idea is that the western end of Main Street needs a help. And it needs the help in the sense of creating a community space, again, to kind of culminate that walk that you're taking down Main Street, Somerville. So the idea of utilizing that lawn area, which is beautiful, and then figuring out a way to incorporate the memorial statues over there, I think that's cool. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there. So this is, the report's pretty clear that this is not this is an idea. We still need a lot of specifics to be worked out. But if you think about capturing that as a community space at a really crossroads to kind of be as our gateway to downtown Somerville, I think there's some really good merit there.
So some of the recommendations here were to convert the driveway from West End Avenue into a slow-speed street that continues through to Somerset Street. The proposed street will provide a proper front door to the municipal building and improve access to the new green. Eliminate the existing slip lane at the east end of the green and absorb the triangle island into a new public space. Provide safe and visible pedestrian access to the new town green by introducing curb extensions and high visibility crosswalks. Relocate the memorial to create a gateway into the downtown. Selectively clear unwanted vegetation and replant with healthy, functional vegetation and trees. Create a large central lawn for events and passive use. And obviously, as Mike mentioned, this concept does require further development prior to implementing it. And one of the things that we'd love to do before doing any more work into this particular section is to include a traffic study. So, do you want to talk about our next strategy, which is...
This is our third final strategy.
All right. Our final strategy includes reinforcing the identity and brand of downtown Somerville. One of the things that is really difficult is when you're coming into Main Street from the Manville area and you're coming up East Main Street, you don't know when you're in downtown Somerville. And a lot of complaints that we get from business owners on that end of the district is that, quite frankly, people disobey the speed laws, right? They blow up the street, and next thing you know, they're at the intersection of Grove and Main, and now that's how accidents happen, right? And so one of the traffic calming features is actually creating wayfinding signage and gateway signage that would help calm the traffic as they get into the district. So the key moves here were developing not just that signage, that gateway signage, but looking at a consistent furniture and materials palette that appropriately reflects Somerville's history and brand, installing those informational kiosks that we talked about a little earlier in key places in the downtown, looking at installing public art that reinforces the identity of our district, and then looking at establishing those gateways at each end of the downtown and the train station. So When we looked at the materials palette, and I won't get too much into the weeds here, the materials palette was developed with a steering committee and provides kind of a basis for the development of more prescriptive design guidelines. It's understood that there's already an existing materials palette currently in place, and so the transition from the existing palette to the proposed and how the two integrate with one another, is really going to be studied further before we begin implementation. So when we look at the ground plane, we're looking at using classic, natural, and durable streetscape materials, including brick and tinted concrete. When we're looking at the furniture styles, we're looking at a style that's a little bit more contemporary in nature to express how we've evolved over time, but still giving a nod to the history. So if you look here, there's the classic horse tie that we'd love to continue to incorporate, right? Looking at the granite. So we're very excited that we still maintain that history while still moving in a modern direction. We looked at a variety of seating types. We understand that we are a county seat, and so we do need to have comfortable seating that invites people to stay. But we also know that, sometimes we don't want people to stay for that long. So we are looking at kind of a mixture of backed benches, backless benches, and then kind of Ottoman-style seating as well. So finally, we're looking at the reinforcement of that identity and brand, looking at a west and an east end gateway. So here, starting on the west end, the recommendations are to redesign the gateway so that it's more prominent and has better visibility, replacing pavement materials to reflect the furniture and materials palette that we select moving forward, and installing gateway signage that's keeping with the brand and aesthetic of downtown Somerville.
Let me handle this.
Sure.
So if you think about downtown, there's a natural anchor to the west end, corner of Somerset and West End with the Barrel Hole in the middle. When you arrive in Main Street, right? You're coming in from Findurn, you're flying up Main, there's no visual cues, you're flying up that hill, and there's nothing to kind of like tone you're hitting Main Street until you basically hit Grove. So this is an opportunity, I think, big time. Then it goes back to the green infrastructure. I think the low-hanging fruit, just figure out the ways to make that connection between downtown Somerville and the park system, the green belt. That's great. I mean, that would be a real enhancement to downtown. And then some of the infrastructure improvements that Natalie mentioned.
So
But we definitely need to do something down there.
So as Mike mentioned, this gateway on East Main Street is really meant to celebrate the Greenway as an important pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular node. The recommendations are to redesign the East End Gateway to connect to the Greenway system and other regional destinations, looking at installing sidewalk extensions at corners to encourage that traffic calming feature. Providing high visibility crosswalks across Main Street to ensure a safe connection for the Greenway. Installing gateway signage to match that which we will be installing on West End. Installing Petersbrook Greenway and Raritan River Greenway totems that include maps of downtown and identify key downtown destinations, walking and bicycling times to each destination, and including additional totems at the connection of the two greenways to highlight access to downtown Somerville. So we're also looking at installing a simple regional map on the totems to show connections to regional destinations like Duke Farms. So I won't go too much into this. We talked about the importance of wayfinding signage. We're looking at supporting the character of downtown Somerville with new and improved signage and adding additional, as I mentioned before, digital kiosks that can be used to reinforce the downtown journey. And then finally, this is our phasing diagram. One of the things that, we really were excited about was having a plan so that we can go after some grant funding, and we can show that we have shovel-ready projects, if you will. And so initially, we thought about starting Phase 1 on Division Street, since it has so much momentum, and then moving east, because we know that we have so much going on West Main Street. But with all of the plans now in conversation for East Main Street, that is subject to change, right? So we're, this is all kind of conceptual and up on the, and up in the air, but this is the proposed phasing plan for us to go out for grant funding.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for your patience. I know it was a lot of detail, but hopefully you got something out of it, and we look forward to working with you, and let's have a discussion.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a couple on Main Street.
Sure.
The fact that it's Route 28,
Yeah.
I'd like to see some discussion at some point, an idea we floated a few years ago about really working with the DOT to use Veterans Memorial Drive, if even to make that the truck route, to get those trucks as a start off of Main Street. I mean, I think Franklin Street was converted to Veterans Memorial Drive, I think with part of that thought in mind, to get the development, which we've seen, but also to create a second Main Street. And I think a lot of the enhancements downtown will be easier without trucks. So just the thought that we should, reach out to DOT, since they're already
Yeah.
looking at the Grove Street intersection. To me, it just makes sense to make a left on Vets and go all the way down, and then come out on Somerset Street.
Yeah, and Mayor, that makes total sense. And the fact, that's why the road was created, going back to the 1969 master plan. The idea was to create this loop around Main Street, so let's use it. But one of the benefits of doing this plan is when we make that pitch to the DOT, we have something we can show them that nobody else can show. Again, we'll be competing against other applicants. They don't have this. We have this to demonstrate why the thinking behind that kind of request. So hopefully this will be greater potential of getting something done.
I know it's probably not in the Phase 1 area, but when we opened up when we had COVID and people were outdoor dining and they allowed the restaurants and stuff to bring their tables and chairs out and they gave out a certain perimeter for which they could place those tables and chairs, and as it went on, those tables and chairs
Yeah.
became more prominent and further out to
Right.
the sidewalk.
Mhm.
And people not being able to walk by or squeeze by with their dogs and cats and everything else. Is that going to be better handled where they have a certain location and that's it, and they're not going to go past that perimeter?
Well, I think, again, going back to that graphic, we showed the 4 different zones and how to utilize.
Pull that up again?
Yeah, not Spanish.
Sure.
I think that will hopefully make it
Yeah, I saw the graphic,
Yeah.
it looked great
Right.
out there. The question is it going to be the same down there?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I think that part of creating that diagram to reorganize the sidewalk is so that we can come back to the table, to the borough, and say, these are the guidelines, and these are the guidelines that we have to stick to. We've had guidelines that have changed, and obviously, we're never going to be able to control all of our business owners, but I think that the plan itself gives us a great basis to create new and improved guidelines and be able to hold our businesses to those standards a little bit better.
So it's,
Be able to control the business owners because that's what.
yeah, yeah.
So if they're not doing what's supposed to be done, then they should be held to another level and say, you gotta do this or else you're not getting it.
Right.
Oh, 100%. And I think that we started working towards that this season. So if you think back to COVID, right, it was just one of those situations that we were trying to help business owners, and then it got out of hand. And so I think there were a lot of temporary approvals that were, and I know, there were a lot of temporary approvals that were given during that time frame that normally would not have been given during the regular course of business. And so we started last year with an initiative to recertify all sidewalk cafes and make all businesses resubmit their sidewalk cafe applications, and there are some who did not, and those businesses will be notified that come next season, they cannot put out their sidewalk furniture until they recertify their sidewalk cafe and they're properly measured. There are fines in place, and we are 100% in support of fining business owners that do not adhere to those standards.
I think I'd like to jump in here because enforcement of a lot of the regulations on Main Street has been non-existent. And that's very important. We can make all the rules we want, we can make all the plans we want. If nobody approaches a business owner and says, you know what, you need to rein in your outdoor dining. We've got restaurants that put their outdoor dining on the curb.
Right.
And that's not.
No, we don't want that.
We've got rules already.
Right.
And as much as we want to improve things, we need to find a mechanism to enforce it. Or at least encourage cooperation. And I think that's been missing for a while. And what I would like to see is, at least for the DSA, to embark upon an informational campaign to advise restaurants, these are the rules, and if you don't adhere to the rules, somebody's going to come and make you do it.
I agree, it's great, yes, we'll redouble our efforts to educate the.
Yeah, we've got the same issue with signage, and I had a discussion with ARB members recently about signs going up that never went to the architectural review board. It's like the wild, wild west out there.
Well, I give kudos to the borough for understanding the severe challenges during the COVID period and allowing restaurants some room to breathe and frankly survive. But we're beyond that now. So I do agree with that.
It's still a good idea. It just.
Oh, yeah.
It just we need to accommodate the people who use the sidewalk who are not engaging in outdoor dining.
Yeah, so there's the outreach idea, Bernie, which we totally support. But we also hope that the work we did in this plan, which shows how they organize the street with the different areas, will lead to better public policy, because now we can have a visualize, okay, how do we organize this complicated piece of real estate in a way that's win-win for everybody, including the restaurant owners.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good ideas in this plan. There are a lot of ideas that we have already tried to implement.
Right.
And we already have the mechanism in place to do it. It just hasn't been done. So I think that if we all work together to do it, we'll get there.
Agreed.
Questions?
Sure.
Over the last almost 10 years, I've worked with the DSA chairman, the two before you, the mayor before you, with the trees. And the original issues, one of the original issues is that the current tree grates, gates, they need to be removed. We've been talking about this for about 10 years. I know that this plan is coming up, but is the plan going to come up in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years?
Well, we started one.
Removing those and redoing the sidewalks on it, because some of those
Yes.
tree the gates,
Yeah.
they're 18 feet long, they're as long as a car.
Yeah,
That could have
no,
benches on
we-
them.
yeah.
It could have
We
fence,
already-
and
we
then
started
you
one,
automatically
right.
Open up the sidewalk for people to walk with carriages, children, dogs,
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
And it would be more room for the restaurant owners. Like, they should be removed. fix the sidewalk as best we can, and that'll buy you a couple of years until these plants come in place.
Right.
The second thing is when we were talking about tree removals. There was one tree that was removed in front of California Picasso that set off the whole thing. One day, tree's gone, everybody's talking about it, never replaced it. We had made suggestions that we actually try to get a tree that's in bad shape. There are several, I have a list, and you can see them. But if you can go out there and plan and see exactly what is under the ground, because some of the public utilities like PSE&G, phone company, gas company, water company, sewer company, some of them don't even have legal plans that we can overlay and say, okay,
Right.
because taking a tree out doesn't mean you just pop another tree in the same spot. It may be beautiful for what it is now, but if you have to move it 5 feet, it may not work, and you don't want to have two trees together. So part of the plan should be getting all the utility companies to tell us where the phone line is, where the gas line is,
Yeah.
it's all underground.
Yes.
And
And
the
like we
expense-
said, complicated piece of real estate, right,
Oh,
Larry?
yeah, certainly is, and I know it's hard, but we never even really tried to put a tree plan together that would actually work. Now you're having that sort of five-year plan. That's a good start, but you really should know how much it's gonna cost before you start slicing and dicing trees. It's not,
Well, we
they're
did-
not gonna go right where you think they're gonna go.
Yeah, of course. So I think, couple things. So I want to start off by addressing the tree grates. So we are still, even though we are trying to find funding to fund the different elements of the plan, we are still moving forward with our annual allocation towards tree replacements and sidewalks. So we just did one in front of Rodelico's, and we're looking forward to doing another one outside of Kima early 2024. So, we did take a break during COVID to allow the restaurants to do what they needed to do, right, to continue to survive. But, we're back on track, and we are going to continue to do 1 to 2 trees every year, in the lead up to this particular implementation.
What about flat out removing all of the tree grates?
Well,
So-
that's what we.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a part of the plan. So when we remove a tree, we remove the grate, right?
Yeah, so we are removing,
Yeah.
yeah, so-
What about leaving the tree and remove the grate
Oh.
now? Because they're just taking up, no pun intended, valuable real
Yeah,
estate.
you know what,
inside.
that's a great idea, actually. Let me think about that. We should have a conversation.
yeah, I think we can certainly have that discussion about removing the grates. I think
Because
that.
the grates were a great idea when we did them in 91, when nobody was downtown. It takes up too much space now, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I think part of the challenge in the past has been that removing the grates, there's footings with those grates that need to come up. So it's not just a simple, a lot of business owners say, oh, you can't just come and clip them. Well, no, we can't just come and clip them because that's a hazard, right? And so I think we can certainly look into a more effective way to remove those tree grates, but rest assured, the efforts to work on the plan that you gave us when we first came to meet with the Environmental Commission with the prioritization of the trees, that exact list of trees, the exact list of recommendations from the tree specialist has been handed over to Arterial, and that's what we're working off of, and we're looking forward to reconnecting with the Environmental Commission to properly structure the 5-year tree plan.
I just have a comment as a resident, and a supporter of Main Street at the same time. With your new wayfaring and everything, you're sort of establishing a style, a color scheme, that hopefully will become uniform throughout Somerville. Because right now, what I feel is happening as a resident is that the downtown, there's huge investments being made, whereas the residential, in order to keep our taxes down or whatever, has been neglected. The parks aren't really doing, don't have a huge budget. So So this public-private partnership, I would like you to consider, like, when you're making these decisions, will it work with the rest of the town, not just as a
Yeah.
commercial downtown street?
Right.
And when you're doing grant applications, can you be a good neighbor and apply for grants that will help the park system or
Yeah.
the crosswalks throughout the town, or something
Yeah.
to that effect, where the residential areas get the
Yeah.
same facelift that the rest of the town?
Well, we're all on the same team, and I think that's a great suggestion, and you're right. We're obviously focused on downtown, and you're suggesting that we keep the idea of partnering and think of the surrounding neighborhood. Absolutely. So that's actually, there's there's property owners on the board, there's business owners, and then there's residents. I'm one of the residents, so I need to take what you just said serious as to do my job.
And so I think one of the beautiful parts of the plan, right, is that the plan takes into account connecting to the Greenway, right, and how we can make that connection. I do want to just remind everybody that, our funding, right, comes from a special assessment to property owners in the district. So we are quite limited as to how we can invest those dollars and where they can be invested. But that doesn't mean that if we can't partner with the borough on a grant application that connects to the Greenway or connects to one of the parks, that we couldn't do that. As a matter of fact, the neighborhood preservation program through the state has not been accepting new applications for the past 2 years, but we are looking forward to when they open up for new applications, to working with the borough to apply to be a neighborhood preservation program, right? The NPP program allows, the NPP track for Somerville runs straight down Main Street and goes all the way up to Gaston Avenue and includes sections of the Greenway and the park. And so, as a 501c3, we are eligible to actually manage that NPP program and the 5 years worth of annual funding that comes with that program. So we are looking into ways that we can be better stewards, right, and really connect with the different elements of the neighborhood.
Always. We'll get it.
Anybody else?
We have not a question, but a comment. I think throughout this process to come, it's going to be important for you to talk about, in your marketing, the value, the benefit to this. Because I hear and I've heard for 28 years, it's all about downtown. What's in it for me?
Right.
And I think despite all of our collective efforts, the general public doesn't understand how taxes are assessed on commercial property. You have a house that's worth X numbers of dollars, you take the tax rate, that's your tax. Most people, and to no one's fault, don't really understand that profitable businesses generate more tax revenue, which goes into the borough budget, which can enhance parks and playgrounds. Most people don't understand that. And they don't see that new revenue from Main Street can help offset the 40% of the properties in town that are tax exempt. That's just reality. So I think as you go through this, if you can put some facts and figures in terms of what traffic activity will be, what vitality downtown will translate into increased value on those commercial properties, that'll open some eyes.
Good. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thank
We
you,
have
Mayor.
some tools that we could use for that. But, yeah,
We don't have a lot of Route 22 frontage. If we did,
yeah.
we'd be in a much different situation.
Sure.
That's our golden mile. And
Yes.
we, whatever we can squeeze from it is going to help the town as a whole.
So
Well,
Mayor,
I'll just take this opportunity, Mayor, to thank you for your support over the years, making these investments possible, and for your leadership. We greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mayor, we just signed a contract with an incredible software called Placer AI. Placer provides us real-time foot traffic data. It's unique data. It works using cell phone data. And so I would love to provide the borough with any data that we could, right, that, supports the initiatives and really kind of helps to talk about, right, how many people we're putting on the street in downtown and what that translates into in terms of economic vitality.
Yeah, that's great.
People understand the tax bill and the little box that draws their attention. And how we can enhance that and educate them is to everybody's benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Anybody else?
I'd like just to close with one final announcement of a grant that we got to recognize Paul Robeson. Natalie, you want to give the details?
Oh, sure. So the county gave us a $34,000 grant to erect a statue of Paul Robeson in the district. We are very excited. We put a call to artists out and we got a couple of very beautiful renderings. We are looking into putting together a committee to evaluate those proposals and to hopefully put a deposit down on the sculpture before the end of the year. So if anybody on this committee would like to be a part of that steering committee for that sculpture, please let me know, because we're definitely looking for community feedback, community input, and connections as to how we can raise additional funds to fill the gap to finish the sculpture.
And we recognize the need to keep St. Thomas AME Church involved in this. And, but I think this is a great opportunity for Somerville to reclaim Paul Robeson. He was, we know, a great athlete, scholar, orator, actor, and all those attributes first emerged in Somerville. And I would argue, maybe only because he was lucky to be in Somerville. Not that it was a perfect place back then, but it was a heck of a lot better in some other places we could name. So that is a tremendous heritage, and we look forward to working with everybody to honor Paul Robeson.
Thank you. Okay. Moving along, I just have one comment, and that is, a few months ago, we tried to amend the POR zone so that people didn't have to go to the Board of Adjustment when they changed the uses to permitted uses, and it didn't work because the existing violations of the bulk standards, pre-existing conditions, are being applied to a change of use, so that they had got to go to the Board of Adjustment anyway. So we're not going to be able to do it next month, but beginning next year, I'd like very much to explore different ways to get that accomplished, because what we wanted to do was make life easier for everybody, and it didn't work. So that's on the agenda for early next year. At this point, I will open the meeting up to the public. Yes, sir.
I stand here, but I gotta come up there.
Yeah, got to come up to the mic.
I'm the shy retiring type.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
And please state your name and address.
Rich O'Neill, 124 West Cliff Street, Somerville. I enjoyed your presentation tonight, but the one thing, and you know where I'm going, the one thing you didn't address is maintenance. Government, and I'm not just pointing to Somerville, although Somerville's good at it, spend a long time planning, a lot of time building, great time cutting the ribbon, walk away and forget it. Nobody takes care of anything we own. And this town is good at that, good at that. And I didn't hear you address that issue at all tonight. I think, I'm not asking for you to do it now, but whatever you build, you gotta take care of. And it starts the day you build, not 2 years or 10 years later. And you need a plan. And this town is falling apart because we don't take care of it. And Main Street, we've had this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not trying to cause a problem, but if you're gonna build something, you gotta take care of it.
That's actually great. Yep. You're absolutely right.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to say that part of our implementation is going to involve, right, coming up with a maintenance plan.
I kind of thought it would.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll close the public session. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike, I have 6 names for the committee, and I'm going to be given to Richard St. Pierre tomorrow.
Perfect.